to another in the series of Cafe Insights. I'm Andrew Vine, the CEO of the Insight Bureau, and today I'm back at the Fullerton Hotel, and this time I'm in conversation with David Lim. Hello, David.
Hello, Andrew.
Well, David is well known in Singapore and around the region as a leadership coach and speaker. He runs a business called Everest Motivational Team, and that really does give away your claim to fame. David led the first successful ascent by Singapore of Mount Everest back in 1998. Is also quite well known for a number of books he wrote: Mountain to Climb, The Quest for Everest and Beyond, and then Against Giants, The Life and Climbs of a Disabled Mountaineer, and then also, more recently, How Leaders Lead.
That's correct, Andrew. I'm glad to be here.
Terrific. Well, first of all, I'm going to ask you the dumb question, the question I think everybody's going to ask you. How on earth does someone who lives on a small, flat island near the equator end up being a mountaineer? And not only that, climb the highest mountain in the world?
Well, you know, that's an interesting question because that's the same question that BBC 5 radio actually asked us when they interviewed us at Everest Base Camp 17 years ago. And I think they could barely hold back their laughter, basically. And yes, it's true, we are not gifted with mountains in Singapore. The highest mountain is like about 164 meters above sea level.
And I can run up that, so that's not so much.
Yeah, there's a road you can drive up that too. So basically we're a bit short on mountains, however, but you can learn all the kind of technical skills you need for mountaineering, like rope work, protection, that you can get from rock climbing in Singapore. Yeah. So the only thing missing are really big mountains and bits of snow and ice. And so that's why we have to go abroad for that, in Borneo, in New Zealand. These are the closest places. China in the winter.
Well, I'm guessing, because you went to Cambridge in the UK, were your friends in the UK put you up to all of this?
No, I did not learn how to climb, nor was I very interested in climbing when I was at Cambridge. In fact, ironically, I was actually in the same college that the famous George Mallory was at college, which was at Magdalen. So there's an interesting connection to Everest that never really came to fruition.
Well, there you go, I made the wrong assumption. So what was it, David? What was the spark that got you interested in this?
Well, ironically, I was very heavily involved in competitive sweetboard rowing. Association, you know, the stuff that you see on Cambridge and Oxford every year. Yeah. And I went to the library hoping to find a book on rowing, could not find one, and found a book on mountaineering instead. So this book called The Shining Mountain was written by some British climbers, and after reading it, I said, well, I don't really understand what this is all about, but it sounds terrifically exciting, and I think I want to do some of this. And luckily for me, someone in the office in London at the time was a kind of retired mountaineer, so he brought me to a climbing wall and showed me some basics. So I really read a book that changed my life, as corny as that sounds.
Well, obviously, the pinnacle, in both sense of the words, of this mountaineering hobby was climbing Mount Everest. What on earth is it like to stand on top of the world?
Well, you know, this is an interesting thing. I've led 2 expeditions on Mount Everest. Yeah. I've put people on my team on Everest, but I've never personally got to the very top myself. Now, I've climbed high on Everest on both times, on both occasions, but never quite to the top. But that is also an extremely interesting part of the story. And that basically feeds itself back these days, of course, when I talk about leadership on the mountains and making very difficult choices and decisions on a mountain. But I can tell you one thing, standing on some of the world's highest peaks, and I have stood on one of the world's highest peaks, although it's not Everest, the first thing that comes to you is that, well, not only is it, wow, what a fantastic view, because the second thought is often, now how do I get down? Because climbing up is, you know, it's always optional, but coming down is definitely mandatory.
What people may not know about your story, though, is that following that expedition to Everest, you were stricken down with a nerve disorder.
That's right.
It was pretty debilitating. I think you were in hospital for over 6 months or so.
Yes.
Paralysed from the eyes down.
Exactly. It was a very severe version of what they call Guillain-Barré syndrome, or GBS. And what it is a nerve disorder in which your body's own immune system attacks your nerves, destroys the nerve, and then renders you paralyzed. In some cases from waist down, neck down. In my case, it was eyes down. And I could only move my left eyelid for quite a while. And eventually it took 6 months for me to recover as the nerves grew back. Of course, during all this time, it's just about learning how to walk, learning how to feed yourself, basically learning how to do all the very basic things that you and I normally take for granted.
All over again.
All over again.
And today this has left you partially unable to use your legs fully.
Yes, my right leg below the knee doesn't really work, so I wear a plastic and metal brace just to keep the foot in a neutral position, and half of the lower left leg doesn't work very well either.
But despite that, you've gone on to lead 15 more mountaineering expeditions, which I think is quite a remarkable story.
Yes, and I have to emphasize that it did not affect my ability to reason. Yeah, although people might think it did, because why on earth would somebody who's partially disabled want to ever get back to the mountain?
But clearly, this is the crux of what you do. There are so many wonderful lessons that can be learned that we can translate into the world of business. And I have an admission to make. When I talk about the Insight Bureau and the kind of speakers that we represent, I start rattling off a list of people that I don't work with. I don't do celebrities, and I don't do sports stars, and I don't do Arctic explorers and mountain climbers. And then I have to stop myself and I go, well, of course there is David Lim. And, I see you as different in a way from just someone who has achieved something, is that you've turned this now into a very successful leadership business over the last 15 years.
Yes, I've been very, very blessed by that. And I think it's because of my own personal journey in the last 15 years, wondering whether all the success I've had in the mountains, bouncing back from disability, can actually be replicated.
Yeah.
So I'm actually professionally and intellectually interested to whether there's research out there, whether there are actually some tools and methods in which people can learn how to be successful, like any other serious achiever, but not necessarily have to have the yen to climb Mount Everest, win an Olympic gold medal, for example. So there's an underlying neuroscience, there's an underlying way of working with teams, of motivating people and groups of people to do things they sometimes don't necessarily want to do, but will bring them ultimately success.
I mean, one of the presentations that I know that you've given is Climb Your Own Everest, which is overcoming a number of challenges that you've faced. So it's a parallel messages that you can use and convert into successful performance.
Yes, and I think it's very important to put a caveat in the sense that not everybody wants to climb Mount Everest or be a mountaineer, but ultimately as a speaker, you can't say you've succeeded unless you've been able to impart on your audience something that will help improve their condition, and that means making them be aware of certain methodologies or skills or things they can do to make themselves uniquely successful in their own field or their industry.
You do a lot of different things, from coaching to workshops to presentations. Give us some idea of some of the challenges you've helped some organizations overcome.
The areas which are most commonly, which most commonly have a need for what I do, obviously teams which are not necessarily dysfunctional, but maybe teams which are good but they want to be better.
Right.
They want to be really good, and that's where we come in and take a look at them. Maybe we'll measure some of the key team attributes, and then we put them through a series of small interventions, sessions in which we actually help them understand what actually drives team success and make them want to express those behaviors sustainably over a longer term to bring that particular group successful. So yes, we've had quantitative and qualitative measurements of some of our clients, and we've been successful in most areas. And
some teams, of course, are not used to actually being together. They're working virtually across different geographies and different parts of the world.
Absolutely. And that's also a challenge, because the FaceTime is so important to build trust, to earn trust. Yeah. And if they're not getting enough of that, then what else can they do in the meantime? So these are some of the really interesting organizational development areas which I've been fascinated about helping my clients be more successful. We've worked together on a number of assignments, presentations at conferences and client events. After a great presentation, I guess a lot of companies will say, well, so what? Now, what now do we do? Well, that's the most interesting question, because there's some clients who have wanted me to add value and impact to an event, and after it's over, it's over. Yeah. I can understand it. But there's some clients who say, well, how else can David actually help my team succeed? And that's where we go into the deep dive. Right. We go and take a look at what are the context, the issues, the near-term and the medium-term challenges, and then working closely with them, we can put together a series of what I call solutions spread over 3 months, 6 months, or 9 months, so that at the end of the line, you get a team that's better able to do X, better able to do Y, for example. And it's all behavioral based. I mean, sometimes the presentation is perhaps the spark that ignites the fire, but you need the fuel to keep it going. Yes, I mean,
my analogy.
Yes, or to use an analogy, you can rattle cages and things like this, but after you go, what's going to keep them a little bit uncomfortable a lot of the time? So they always feel they can do better.
Well, terrific. Well, David, it's great to catch up with you this afternoon and have a chat. I'm sure that you haven't completely hung up your boots yet. What's next on your agenda?
Well, I'm really hoping to put together a really nice, exciting expedition in 2016.
Okay.
And where it is, well, I've shortlisted 3 or 4 mountains, projects, routes, and still not decided. It depends really on the dynamic of the team that comes together, and ultimately what they feel excited about too. So I'm really looking forward to next year.
Well, it's great to see your enthusiasm for that. All the best, and thank you very much for coming together with me today.
And thanks.